Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today, we're going to be talking about something that everyone's been wanting me to make a video on. Is Wizard101 worth playing in 2023? I think it's a super pertinent topic. The first arc is free. There are tons of people playing now that just haven't played like ever. And I wanted to make a video that is as unbiased as possible based on my years of playing and my reaction to a lot of the things that they've done recently. Now, keep in mind, me being unbiased does not mean that I'm going to like literally dookie on the game. Some people seem to love doing that, even though they can't seem to stop playing. They'll still say that the game's awful. Nor will I be sugarcoating it, because if you have tuned into the content, there are tons of things to talk about when it comes to like negative. So let's talk about it. So one thing that I will say is in 2023, Wizard101 is just not the game that it used to be. They're taking marketing clearly much more seriously. I think they're taking the idea that the game might actually be somewhat free to play with the premium option more seriously. We've seen that with an insane reduction of gear that's pay to win. We've seen the first arc being free. We've seen endgame content like PvP. It's free now. You don't have to pay for it like you used to. In fact, I've talked about this in previous videos. For the first time in the history of Wizard101, if you wanted to PvP and it's not just like extremely early game, you can officially do that for free now. You can do the first arc for free, you can get to level 50, and you can PvP for free. So if you're just trying to get a taste of a turn-based card game, I feel like this is honestly the best place Wiz has ever been, so it's totally worth playing. But I do think the question becomes harder and becomes more controversial when you're talking about late game and all of the new things that Wizard101 has been adding. Is the direction for late game and anything new that's gonna happen in Wiz, is that a good direction for someone who's wanting to weigh whether Wizard101's worth playing? And I think this is where a lot of these opinions come from. I don't think they come from an invalid place. I think if you're like a nostalgic player and you see a lot of these new changes, your first gut is, man, screw this, I'm done, it's changing too much, don't play this. That seems to be a gut reaction for a lot of veteran players, and I think that's I think it's misguided. I'll say this, right? They did a recent Spellman overhaul, and honestly, the card text, some of it is not too bad because, you know, it has numbers on it, which I can kind of follow. But some of these new spells, right? A lot of people call these Rochambeau spells. I still think that these, whatever the impact they do have on the game, they're very, very hard to understand for a casual player. Whereas spells used to look like this, where, you know, it's kind of obvious what it does because of the numbers. You know, you have 4 pips, you have 135 damage, you have a 25 bubble. It's not the same when you look at something like this, right? For one, you don't even know what you're actually doing with this card because it doesn't tell you how powerful the traps that you make are. This spell, right? It's supposed to clear blades and then make traps. You don't even know how powerful the trap is. For a lot of these new Rochambeau spells, for you to know how to use them, you just gotta do it first and then figure out whether it's worth. That one little barrier is already crazy because sometimes people don't want to do that. If I were to link something in the description, right, adding one extra click for you guys, how many of y'all would do it versus the number of people that ended up watching the video? When you add an extra step for learning how a spell works, like literally having to use it in PvP or having to go into practice and using it, it creates a huge issue where people just feel like they don't understand the game anymore, and the gut reaction is, I don't want to be a part of it. So I feel like these new spells, just because of how experimental they require you to be, are kind of flawed, and I really, really hope that they do a huge revamp of a lot of this so it's just easier to understand. Maybe just have, like, you know, some kind of text that hovers over this that just tells you what it does in text, and that way you don't have to guess. But I'll say this much: as confusing and complicated as the game has gotten, I do truly believe that it's going in a better direction than it was from the beginning, honestly. And the reason I say that, for the first time ever in PvP, and honestly in any other facet of the game, your school choice actually matters. They're creating relationships between schools that haven't existed. Like, death counters life now. That genuinely has not existed in the history of Wiz and PvP. I think that if you're willing to learn the symbols and be patient with the devs as they actually figure out how to do a lot of this stuff, I do think it's worth playing because I think your choices matter a lot more, and it's much, much harder to be good at PvP, especially across multiple schools. It's very easy to spam a few shields or spam a few heals and call yourself good, but when you get into the nitty-gritty of it and really make a lot of wizards, it's a unique experience across the board, especially in PvP, and I think that's something that Wizard101 has lacked for a long, long time. Now, we're bringing up the devs here, right? And I'm going to talk about the things I love, the things that I hate. I think I'll start with the positives. And this is something that, for some reason, a lot of people don't seem to agree with. People really love to call the devs on this game terrible or bad at their job. And I will be the last one to agree with everything that they put out. But honestly, I think going after how responsive they are, which seems to be the biggest criticism, is absolutely ridiculous to me. I would argue that Wizard101 has more responsive devs than any other game I've ever seen. And this, I'm not talking about like as a content creator. I'm talking about like you go to their social medias and you can have a conversation with them. They live stream. They literally have personal live streams and live streams with the community where they're literally reading chats. This is not something that every game does. Now, in terms of how receptive they are to the feedback, this is my issue. I think they take way too long to implement changes, and I'll always have an issue with this, right? If something is like really messing with the meta, you can expect that to stay for like a month maybe. Like, I think that's ridiculous, because when you're looking at a meta that's actually forming, sometimes all it takes is a couple of disruptive elements and the whole meta falls apart. And I think having hotfix windows, which it seems like they have more than usual, but even more than what we have now, something where they can actually like fix spells that aren't working as intended, or maybe like, you know, change the pip cost of things that are just spammed endlessly. Small little changes like that, like at a higher frequency, I think it would do so much good for the game, and it just seems like that's not within their capabilities. I don't know why. I wish I knew why, but I feel like slow and king size slow are two different things, and it's very frustrating. So I think it takes a patient person to really get engaged in the end game of Wizard101, and for that question to be answered of whether Wizard101 is worth playing or not, you might have to ask yourself how patient you are and how tied you are to how things used to be. I'm gonna be honest, I know as I make this video that there's gonna be a ton of people that will call me out for being a king style shill or saying that I ride the game, you know, like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff like that, but I think that having an objective view of this game is much more productive than just saying, like, it's the worst game on earth, or saying that it's unplayable, or saying that it's not worth supporting, especially when a lot of the people that say this, for some reason or another, they can't seem to stop playing. And that's why I wanted to make this video. I think there's a battle for the narrative these days, and I think the narrative is so biased sometimes when it comes to hating on this game. This past year, Wiz did things that people have been waiting for them to do for more than 10 years. That's something to celebrate and hope that they continue, because as they continue this, I cannot see this game going downhill in the same way that I felt that it was going downhill in past years. And for that reason alone, just to be a part of a community that's actually growing and changing, I'm here for the ride. I hope a lot of people are too. I would love to hear y'all's opinions. What do you guys not like about Wiz recently? What do you love about it? What do you think could be changed? What do you think they could do better? And answer the question in the comments. For anyone else who wants to watch this, who's a returning player after a while, a new player, is Wizard101 worth playing in 2023 for you? I'd love to hear y'all's opinions in the comments. As always, man, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong, so stay awesome, and yeah.